Love is the most powerful force in the universe, and it will bring humanity together at some point. We have no idea how powerful we are as human beings. We are divine, enlightened creators, beings of light, eternal. And yet we're having this experience, the human experience, and it is full of choices. We could talk about it and we could theorize about it, but we'll never know the lesson unless we experience it.
Guy here, welcome to my podcast. Today I welcome back Jeffery Olson, and this man is amazing. This podcast is amazing. His journey is so moving and incredible. Today you might be familiar with the story and you might not be. We dived into his journey and story last time of his near-death experience and in the original podcast, so I didn't go into it as much today, though, even though it comes up and it's extremely moving. So if you want to really dive deeper, I recommend the other podcast as well. And today we dive into not only what he saw on the other side from his near-death experience, but about what's happening with humanity right now and whether we're actually falling apart or falling into place, and his views around this and spirituality in general. Like I said, I love this man. This podcast was amazing. And if you listen to it in entirety, I promise you will feel hopeful and inspired by the end of it. So if you are listening on YouTube, all your likes, comments, shares, all help grow this podcast and continue to help get these content and information out there. So if you do enjoy it, please, interact and engage. It really does help. And of course, like I always ask, let me know where you are in the world, where you're tuning in from. It's wonderful to see you coming in. I've literally just got back from the Croatia retreat. You're feeling the small bits of jet lag, but all in all feeling pretty awesome as well. And if you want to know what we're up to, I always say there's actually 3 ways we can support you, as in myself and Live in Flow, if you're ever interested and want to continue your journey with us. What links will be below, but there's a free HEARTT guide we offer. I'm not sure if you know it. I do mention it now and then. But that HEARTT guide is something, the PDF that you can print out and put on your fridge. It's a great introduction to our values and to the work, and it helps you start to integrate more living from the heart and the acronym and that. So I'd highly recommend check that out. We actually hold a membership community that we have. I think we've got close to 200 people from all over the world in there at the moment. It's continuing growing. If you're feeling disconnected from people and you actually want to meet people and want to come together and be held in processes and held with frameworks, courses and structures to help you guide you into your own inner wisdom, we have that on offer as well. There'll be links below for that. And of course, our events and retreats, which we are holding all over the world. And if you were just in Croatia, hey, it was wonderful to meet you all. So it's there. We want to get this out to as many people as offering, and there are offerings if any of that resonates. Anyway, I hope to meet you one day in person somewhere around the world. Enjoy this podcast with Jeffery. It's phenomenal. Much love. Jeffery, welcome back to the podcast, my man. So nice to see you.
Good to see you again, too. It's been too long, and yet it seems like yesterday and 5 years ago.
It's
wow.
Crazy, isn't it? And I was thinking, what was happening 5 years ago? I've literally, at that point, I think I just gave birth to my first daughter not long in that year. Mm-hmm. So she's 5.5 now, and had a son as well since, who was actually born on my birthday. Can you believe it? So
that's
he'll be
beautiful.
2 in December. So yeah, there's lots been happening. My life is very full. But anyway, this podcast is about you today, and I have no doubt I'll be introducing you to new listeners and also people that obviously know your journey and story as well. But, just to keep it into format, if you were at an intimate dinner party, though, and somebody asked you what you did for a living, how would you respond?
Well, actually, I still work full time. I'm currently the creative director at a television network known as BYU TV. And we do all kinds of different content, everything from reality shows to scripted dramas. In fact, we've been working with the BBC on a show called Mallory Towers. It's an era piece about British schoolgirls and their connection. And we won an Emmy for that one. It was Best Supporting Actor. So that's what I do with my daytime. In my spare time, I'm an author, I'm an inspirational speaker, and wow, I'm a grandfather now too. You speak of these children. I've got a baby grandson who will be turning 2 in January, and he is the joy of my life. He's
I
amazing.
bet. Congratulations. It's
Thank
such a
you.
so they're my greatest teachers at the moment. They truly are. It's really fascinating to witness, you know.
Yeah.
But I've one place I did want to start, Jeffrey. You know, we might get into your own journey and things in a moment, but is when we last spoke, we were in the middle, I think, of the pandemic. It had just come out, and you
Yeah.
know, we're 5.5 years on now, and there seems to be a lot of fear perpetuated out there, a lot of noise. It's quite incredible if you tune into that, which I try not to do. I generally try and avoid all channels, to be honest with you. But I was just curious, how do you see things unfolding on a global scale at the moment?
That's a beautiful question. And yeah, I don't watch things either. In fact, I sometimes tell myself the story that I'm so uninformed, it's irresponsible, and yet ignorance is bliss. Now, and yet ignorance. Now, I have moved away. I live on a little farm. I've got my own water source. I've got orchards and gardens and animals and chickens and horses and cows and sheep. And so I am somewhat off the grid. Now that's not necessarily all true because I come to work every day and I'm smack dab in the entertainment industry and I get information, but I don't watch the news. And I also realize, okay, what story am I being fed? And where I'm at and where it's come to is just trusting this, like literally tuning
Your
in
heart. Yeah.
to my own vibration, to my heart, to source, if you will, and without judgment of anyone else's journey or anyone else's, opinion, just checking in to my own truth, my own journey, my own gauge, and following that. And that's where I've found peace and power and progress for myself is in really trusting my inner knowing and trusting those feelings, which for me, feelings are the voice of spirit,
Hmm.
and leaning into that, leaning into that.
No, I get it. And you know what's coming to me as you sharing is like, because you're looking through the lens of, I guess, certain experiences that many people just ponder on and think what else is out there. You know, it's fascinating because
Right.
I think I'm up to nearly 400 podcast episodes, and there's been quite a few near-death
Mm.
experiences and that, and it feels like everybody's looking outside of themselves to see what's happening when we're not
Right.
looking within. But you know, how has your, I guess, journey evolved since that experience? Like, how do you look at life these days then, and with all the chaos and things that are going on through that lens, purpose, divine love?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of division, particularly where I'm at, in the United States, and gosh, we've had shootings and all kinds of violent things going on here. And yet I see this playing out in an interesting way. I don't necessarily feel like things are falling apart. I feel like they may be falling into place. I do not like violence. I'm a oneness guy. I'm one that wants peace, that wants unity, that wants acceptance, no matter what your opinion is. And yet as it falls apart, I feel like it is coming together. In other words, a bulb, when you plant it in the ground, in the soil, and we do that this time of year where I'm at in the fall, you go out and put bulbs in. And that bulb has to come completely apart. It literally goes inside out to grow and bloom. And I feel like we may be in that process. I feel like we may be literally coming apart, and then the collective conscious will make a choice. Things will somehow become neutralized, and we'll make a choice of how we move forward together rather than so segmented and apart. So I am not I'm not a doomsday guy. I am very optimistic. I feel that people at their core are good, and I know that love will prevail. Yeah, love is the most powerful force in the universe, and it will bring humanity together at some point. And I feel like we're going to move forward in a much more powerful way.
I remember hearing you say once about out of body experience, and you said, "What about an in body experience?" And
Yeah.
and that sat with me when I heard that, because I thought, wow, isn't that the truth? That we've got this temple, we got this divine vehicle, this being that is allowing us to experience the gift of life, yet we don't stop. Like, the pace of life is so fast, it's so hectic, and so, like you say, driven. How
Yeah.
what have you found over the years? Like, how does one turn that around to really get it, to really start to come back to that without having to have a near death experience, or you know an awakening per se, to really start to love ourselves unconditionally for who we are? And
It's an interesting question, Guy. And of course, I have a cheat sheet. I had a profound near-death experience, out-of-body experience, and yes, one does not need that to have an awakening. However, I don't know if we get there without an awakening of some kind, be it mystical, be it spiritual. That seems to be the catalyst for people to go within. I was contemplating this the other day. There's like three things that really, that really open people up. And one is death, whether that's their own near-death experience or the death of people we really love, that we're really close to. That seems to be a catalyst for growth, if you will. Also, illness. Someone gets sick, they get a dis-ease, and they suddenly their health is not at its top level, and that can bring people deeper. Or there's this third thing, which is like betrayal. Betrayal of a friend, of a spouse, of someone close to you, and that seems to be a bit of an undoing for people as well. And yet, how does one get there without an awakening? I don't know if you do. Now, certainly there's all these modalities. There's all kinds of meditations and yoga and processes and practices and spiritual practices that can bring one within, that can, connect us to source, if you will. And yet they might be practices until a true awakening takes place. And that can come in everything from a near-death experience or the tragic loss of loved ones, or you might be sitting watching a sunrise on a rock somewhere, and then suddenly it clicks. It's like, wow, I am that. I am that sunrise. I am that rock. I am that light and that warmth. And if there was a pattern to it, Guy, if there was a way, like here's your 8 steps to go through, we could bottle it up and sell it. However, I think it's an individual journey, and how the individual comes to that is as unique and profound as our individual lives are. So it's a beautiful question. It's one of those questions where I kind of scratch my head and say, boy, I don't know. And my awakening began with the near-death experience, the out-of-body experience, but it's certainly progressed. It's certainly grown and progressed. And I'm at this beautiful point in my life, gray-haired and a grandfather, where I don't know if I know anything. I mean, it's funny. My book is entitled Knowing, and now it's like, gosh, I don't know if I know anything, and yet I have this comfort or this peace in not knowing. It's like, well, maybe I don't know, or maybe the more I think I know, the more I realize I don't know, and it's a void that has become exciting and inspiring, and I don't know if comfortable is the word, but I'm at peace with it. I'm at peace.
Well, it's a
Yeah.
beautiful place to be, isn't it? Really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
It's
is.
funny. I wonder if we will ever know, really, like this,
Yeah.
as I'm getting older, it feels like, yeah, I realize I don't know anything, like, especially as the ego or the identity dismantles more and more, the personality
Yeah.
aspect. What were you like before the accident? Was any of the spiritual inquiry on the radar at that time in your life?
It was, but in different ways. Now, if I go back to my childhood, if I go back to me as a little boy, I was quite spiritual. I grew up on the farm. I remember being out in the fields under the dark sky and looking at the stars and just marveling, like, wow. I felt so small, and yet I felt so magnificent. It's like, I am that. And there's so much more than me in this field. If I go back that far, but as life progressed, there was all that pressure, competition. You better get the grade and make the team and get the girl, and and I became a very driven young man. Driven. I was going to make the grade and make the team and get the girl and get the house and get the car and have the job, and I seemed to let my ego get wrapped up in what I had. And I don't know that I was ever greedy, and I don't know that I was ever arrogant, but I was very competitive. I was going to beat the other person. I was going to get the account. I was going to land the job. And it all probably comes from, I was a Division I football player. It was all competition. It was all the game, the score, and who won. And that was true right up until the accident. And the accident, I was a young man. I was only 33 years old. I had started my own marketing firm. I have always worked in the creative realms, and I was building a business. I was building a life. We had just built our home, and we're, starting a family. It's interesting to talk to you because I was where you are. I mean, I had 2 young children and a beautiful wife, and I had a business that was thriving, and I was working very hard. There's that interesting balance. And for me, it was the traditional things of being a father, which meant I was a provider. I was a protector. And I let my ego get wrapped up into my worth being what I provided or what I brought home. And, that was never my worth. I was certainly never treated that way, but that was the story I had told myself about it. And when the accident happened, when all of that went away, my physicality, my ego in my physical body and my ability to do whatever I wanted to with the body. The car crash, and many may know the story, but it crushed both of my legs. My left leg was amputated above the knee. My right leg is all pinned together. There's 6 pins and a plate in it, holding it together now. And I do experience pain with that. My back was damaged. 2 of my vertebrae were cracked, and they're now deteriorating. And I'm experiencing all the back pain that comes with age and injury. My shoulder was all torn out. My arm was nearly torn off. My rib cage was damaged. My lungs were collapsed. The seatbelt cut through me and ruptured all my midsection. It was a horrible automobile accident. But the worst part, as you're well aware, because we've talked about this guy, is my wife and my youngest son were killed instantly in the accident. And so what changed in such a drastic moment was I got really, really clear about what mattered, what was important. I mean, suddenly the job, the car, the credentials, the accolades, none of that mattered. My wife was gone. My son was gone, and I was crippled. I was in a wheelchair for a long time, and I was landed with raising my oldest son, who was only 7 at the time, as a single father in a wheelchair. Now, I eventually learned to walk. I was fit with a prosthetic limb. I mean, I really, that drive that came from my adolescence and young adulthood very much kicked in, and yet my heart was open. As part of the near-death experience, not only had I lost half the family, which really, I don't know if there are words for how that changed me. I mean, I realized that every day was a gift. I might not get tomorrow. So what am I doing in those relationships? And how am I being to really seize those precious sacred moments? That changed me, but I also had a brush with what I call God. I mean, as I left my body and was in those other realms and had the near-death experience, I was embraced by unconditional love. And that changed me too, because before the accident, I would probably classify myself as religious. I was doing it right. I was in church, in the pew. I was doing it right. And what I experienced in my near-death experience was love. There was no judgment. There was no accolades for right or wrong. There was simply unconditional love, love without conditions. And that changed me too. That opened me up in ways that I would never be the same. And I experienced people differently. When I was out of the body, I mean, my body was laying on a gurney, and it took a whole team of doctors, and it took almost 6 months and 18 surgeries to put me back together. But in those early moments when I was literally out of the body, like my body was lifeless, but my soul was very much alive, I could experience the people around me. I could feel them, and I could see them, and I knew everything about them. And yet there was no judgment. There was this profound sense of love. And it shifted me. So there was a big difference between the Jeff before the accident and then after the accident. But the reintegration, coming back into the body and surviving and then going back to work and building a life, I was homesick. Like, well, where's all that love I felt on the other side? Where's all that consciousness that my soul experienced being outside of my body? And, it wasn't there every day. And integration was a challenge as well. But that's a very long answer to what is not a simple question. I mean, the question you ask is so deep. And, yeah, it changed me. And so I see things differently and I experience things differently. And perhaps that's why I'm so optimistic about the world. It's because we are divine beings. And there is an end plan, if you will. It simply lies upon our choices. What choices will we make individually? And how will that affect the people around us? And how will that ripple out into our communities and into our countries and into our hemispheres? And we have no idea how powerful we are as human beings. because we're far greater than human beings. We're being human, but we are divine, enlightened creators, beings of light, eternal. And yet we're having this experience, the human experience, and it is full of choices. What choices will we make?
Wow. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing. That is interesting as you share that. It just brings up so much for me, being a father of two young children. It actually sat with me for days before you came on. Knowing, because it's like, oh, I just, but it also makes me truly try and treasure them in every moment. And it's so easy. It's like, somebody who's had an awakening, I was sharing with you off air, and kind of feel like I've had the cheat sheet, if you like, to a degree, because my pain was like a low grade, slowly suffering over years kind of feeling that was just escalating, and it's like, is this what? Very, very different. But I still grapple with the dance of being present and at peace, to being driven and exploring. I see the impact our work has at our events and retreats that we do with people, and help them. But then there's family. Like, it's all like, oh my God, will I ever really know what to do? At the end of the day, but just do my best. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The beautiful thing, Guy, is you're doing it. You're doing something.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're doing your best. You're giving it an excellent, you're taking bold action, even in doing the podcast, and especially in your events and when you bring people together. So I champion the work you're doing, and I think all of us say, well, gosh, what can I do? One person, but one person can make such a big difference, and you are. So I'm just like sending you a big Zoom pat on the back here for the work you are doing, because you're doing something about it.
Appreciate it. That means a lot coming from you, Jeffrey. One thing that was coming into mind was when you had those experiences, when you were at the hospital and you spoke about out of body connection. Like, I know it's probably indescribable, but how real was it compared to the experience because all we know is our three-dimensional reality through our five senses at the end of the day, right?
Yeah. Yes. And it's interesting that you ask, because for me now, being out of the body and having those connections, experiencing that oneness, that was real. That was far more real than being here now. And this was the challenge in integrating. It's like, wow, there was such clarity. There was such peace. There was such love being out of the body and coming back into it. This feels like the foggy, weird dream state where being out of it was crystal clear. And yet I've processed that for years now. The accident was 29 years ago. I mean, it's almost been 3 decades. My young son who passed would be, gosh, he'd be 32 years old, No, he would be 31 years old. I mean, a grown man. So much time has passed, and I've processed all this. And there was a great deal of that time. It was like, wow, it was wonderful to be out of the body. It was wonderful to have that clarity. It was wonderful to have that connection and feel such love. And truly it was. However, now it's like, well, what's it like to be in the body? You mentioned this, like, wow, but we're in the body. I chose this. I chose to come and have the human experience, and to see what it was truly like to feel the pain, physical and emotional, the heartbreak, the loss, the grief, all these things. And so now in my older age, it's like, what a gift to have had that experience. If my soul is eternal, and if out of the body there isn't so much strife, well, then this life is the thing that builds muscle. This is what brings strength and character to the soul, is the things that we experience. And we chose it. We chose to come and be human. to have the experience and experience the grief, and yet the grief seems to counteract the joy. I mean, the depths of sorrow that I've experienced have simply created reservoirs for me to experience greater joy. And I've come to another interesting conclusion too, and that is the deep grief, the grief that I have felt may be the most magnificent form of love there is. I mean, we grieve because we love. We hurt because of our love. And when we love big, we grieve big. When people get sick or they pass or these things happen. And so I'm in this space now, which might be different than it was 10 years ago or 20 years ago or obviously 30 years ago, where perhaps our experience here is all love. Even the challenges, maybe those things or those people that really, push my buttons, they may be the biggest gift I've ever had, because that's where my soul expands.
Gosh. What do you think then the purpose of it all is in terms of the soul and coming here and not remembering? It's like let's erase the memory, let's throw it in this playpen and see what happens, kind of thing.
Yes, we must have been out of our minds, perhaps. And the purpose, I mean, the purpose of life is to learn. It's simply to learn, and we learn from our experiences. I mean, we could talk about it and we could theorize about it, but we'll never know the lesson unless we experience it. Experience, to me, is the only true teacher. And so it's really a perfect playpen, if you will, where we forget our eternal light, our eternal nature. We forget that we are literally manifestations of Source. And we come down here and bump around into each other, and we have our opinions, and we get angry, and we play, well, they're wrong and we're right, and therefore we go to war over it. And perhaps the purpose is to stop it, to learn what works, to learn to overcome the differences and the emotions of those judgments, and to truly unify and be one as humankind. And yeah, that's a big, challenging game to play, given all the different opinions and all the different cultures. However, I feel we're far more alike as children of the divine than we will ever be separate based on our beliefs or our cultures or our feelings. And if we could step into love, if we truly could step into a place of acceptance and love, it may just ripple out in a way that that changes the world. Perhaps heaven's right here if we choose to create it.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? It's fascinating, as you share was coming in, is that I think about environments that we're exposed to and what we're in. And my belief is that it's our default is to be loving, caring, compassionate, and kind. It's actually innate in us, and the deception and the lies and the challenges, it feels like they get programmed into us as we go through life. And yet when we bring people together, we kind of dismantle that, and we see the best of humanity in a group of people. When I put my children in the right environments, I see them thrive and nurture, and grow. And then it's like, wow, surely we can set up environments for us more as a humanity and people to really start to get it, where we naturally gravitate then to become that person, as opposed to go in there kicking and screaming, thinking that we've already got it all solved.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes, I do. I do know what you mean, because, I bring groups together here, and gosh, I've worked with indigenous cultures and very diverse opinions. I don't get really political here. However, it's so divided even politically and religiously and all these things we do. And what I've found is key for me is to listen and learn without judgments, because many will have a different opinion than I do. And the beauty perhaps is not surrounding myself with people that are all the same, to literally, gosh, let's go talk to this guy who has a different experience, who has a different life, who has a different culture, who has different belief systems. And let me simply listen without judgment and find the common ground. Find the common ground that can bring us together rather than separating us apart. I feel that most of humanity really does want the same thing. We love our children. We love our families. We want communities that support and thrive together. And let's lean into that instead of our differences, and perhaps things would shift. I'm not pretending it's easy. It's not like you can wave a wand and all that goes away. But if I'm open and if I'm willing to listen and to learn without judgments, I find a peace that, wow, it goes to love. It's like, wow, you want the same things I want. We're just telling different stories about how to get them.
Yeah, it's a big word, judgment, isn't it? It's something we're conditioned and very good at.
Yeah, we do, and we judge what we don't understand. What we don't comprehend. It brings up fear, and then we have judgment around the fear. And I feel like my life has brought up so many situations where there's been true fear, and I feel the judgment come up, and now I'm able to kind of step in and say, okay, those are the feelings. Let me listen and let me learn. And perhaps there's far more common ground than I realized in what we truly want at the core.
After those experiences that you've had, and obviously the healing journey you've been on, what are the guiding principles this day? Because you speak of you live at peace. Have you been living from a place of surrender and truly been able to allow things to unfold? Like, how do you get to choice points and make decisions and knowing that where they're coming from? Are they coming from the heart and the soul, and from a greater, or are they coming from the head, the ego, the judgments?
Yeah. You ask such beautiful questions, Guy, and I don't have it all figured out. Things happen in my life and I get mad as hell. It's like, oh, how could they possibly, what were they thinking? Yeah, I experience all of that. And I do attempt to ask myself the question of what would love do? I've got adult children now. I've got grown men, and sometimes what love would do, it might be to kick their butt and straighten them out. It could be that way. But asking the question, and I've also learned, let's respond and not just react. Because we can become victims in reaction, like, oh, this happened, and therefore I react, and that hurt my feelings, and that broke my heart, and that, we can react to it, or we can respond. And respond maybe takes a minute to breathe and ask those questions. What would love do? What serves the highest good in this situation? The native elders around me would say, well, we look at what will affect 7 generations moving forward. That's how we make decisions, is what's going to affect 7 generations moving forward. I find so much wisdom in the ancient ways, and I do ask those questions. But no, I'm no one's guru. I haven't figured it all out. I've had some profound experiences. They've given me profound insights. And maybe it's as simple as that. Just taking a breath, responding rather than reacting, and asking that question, what would love do and what serves the highest good for all parties, even if it's my enemy, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, totally.
Yeah.
Totally. I wanted to ask you as well about your healing journey and over the years, from, when you first came home after the hospital and the
Yeah.
accident to life and getting on with it. And, what did you find helpful through those periods of times? Were there different modalities? Was it connection of people, support? Like, what have been different things that have stood out for you on your journey that might inspire others?
Yeah. Well, number one is I had a motivation. I mean, my oldest son survived the accident. So there was a reason. I was going to survive for my son, and that was motivation to heal. Many modalities. I had interesting experiences in the hospital, and bless these nurses. There was a woman, and she came in at one point, and she had a personal conversation with me. I was still very sick. And it was the first time I heard the word shaman. She recognized, she said, you have left your body. You've gone to the other worlds and come back. And I wondered how she knew that, because I really wasn't even that vocal. I was very ill. But she continued to be my nurse and was my ostomy nurse. And she would come in and say, may I just do some work on you? Now, at the time, I had no idea. I thought, is she going to take blood? Is she going to poke me with more needles? But she would put her hands on my head, and then she would work on my foot. Of course, I just had the one leg. But now I'm very well aware she was doing Reiki. She was doing energy work. And even though I didn't realize what it was at the time, I do now. In fact, based on that, I studied and became a Reiki master because I experienced what it felt like when she did that. It was incredible. So that was a beautiful modality. I have found power, peace in simple things like rocks, stones, crystals. I have different types of crystals in my house. I will set them up. I'll feel the energy, and I'm not a crystal expert, but I'll go into a crystal or rock shop, and I'll pick something up, and I'll say, wow, that feels good in my hand. This feels like it would assist my healing physically. And it might be a different stone that feels like this may assist my healing emotionally. And now I'll even pick up stones on the trail outside. It might just be a dark brown rock over there and it's rough, but I feel that the stones hold energy. They hold truth. And I remember reading some biblical verses in the Old Testament about the stones held the testament of it. I thought, boy, the stones hold the truth. So those are strange, energy modalities, alternative modalities. I have become very holistic. I don't take painkillers at all. I use herbs. I use natural holistic medicines. That has been very useful and very helpful to me. Movement, call it qigong. I mean, we're almost talking physical, but we are in the physical. Move your body. Get the body moving. And I don't move very well. I mean, I'm old and broken up, and yet if I keep moving, I always say motion is lotion. And here's something I found very helpful. And my nieces and nephews would tell you about this when I was still in a wheelchair. And I was so broken. I mean, I was so emotionally distraught. But we would put on music and we would dance. We would dance. I mean, and I'm crying, but my little nieces and nephews, because I was staying at my brother's house, and my son was involved. Spencer was there as well. But we would dance. I have found that so helpful. And all cultures dance. It's something in the ancient wisdom of movement. So rocks, energy work, dancing and movement, and music. Music. I mean, we have drum circles here, and every culture drums as well. Whether it's Nordic or Celtic or Asia, we're all drumming. We're all drumming. And we get together and people bring hoop drums or djembe drums or any kind of drum to keep time to. And it's interesting to watch because people don't even know how to drum. They might show up and they've never played a drum, but somehow someone starts a beat and then people begin to join in, and it sounds like utter chaos, for about 3 minutes. But somewhere there's this magic synchronicity that happens. All of a sudden there's a beat. And people are not playing all the same, but there's a vibration, there's an energy to it. And that has been very healing. Also, and whatever word you want to use, meditation, prayer. I mean, I call it ABC, always be connected. Just reach out to whatever that is for you, that higher power. God, the universe, consciousness, source, light, even if one is a non-believer, like reach out to something bigger than I am, even if it's the sun or the moon or something. For me, it is a divine creator. It is God. I pray, ask, communicate, listen. My prayers have become much different. I used to say eloquent prayers, but after the accident, I learned to listen. Just shut my mouth and listen. And maybe the only appropriate words to speak are thank you for the experience, for life, for what I'm learning, for the nudges or the impressions that come in. And that has been very helpful. One last one. Do something for somebody else. I mean, when I was in it, and I was in so much pain physically, emotionally, the grief, the torture, the trauma. If I could do something for someone else, that was the best pain reliever I could ever experience. I felt good when I could do something for someone else, even if it was just a phone call. That's a long answer again to your question. Questions are so good. Your questions are so good. I love a conversation like this.
No, you're welcome. Thank you. No, I love it. It's funny. It got me reflecting on certain things because being a Welshman, grew up playing rugby and drinking beer and stuff. It was culturally ingrained in me, very hard to explore, I guess, alternative or different things initially. When you're speaking about rocks and Reiki and crystals, I'm like, that's brilliant because the personality is not getting in the way. You're just actually feeling into a resonance and exploring what comes naturally to you. It's like leaning into the creative side, isn't it? Instead of the structural.
Yeah, it truly is. It truly is. And yet I think the athleticism, being in the body, rugby. I played rugby one day.
Oh, did you?
I did. I was in college and they needed some extra guys, and that's a man's sport. I mean, I thought, nope, I'm putting the helmet and pads back on. That rugby was rough, but I loved it. But the physicality of that too, of the camaraderie of team and locking arms and getting shoulders together, and whether it's a scrum or whatever it is, blocking for each other in life is a beautiful thing. And I'm actually Welsh by my DNA is Nordic. It's all Norwegian and Scottish and Welsh. And it doesn't matter where you come from. There's still native ancient wisdom. And I suppose as men we love to compete. That's why we play the games, but I just wish we could go have a rugby match and not go to war or not try to
Exactly right.
win or beat, I mean, if we could have a winner and a loser and then hug and shake hands and move on, that would be the way to resolve
That
things.
was one of the interesting values actually of rugby, because it's a very, like you say, aggressive sport. It's very physical. I mean, I'm glad I stopped playing at a younger age, because I don't know what state my body would be in right now. But no matter what
Right.
happened on the rugby field, you'd get into fisticuffs. There'd be all sorts of dirty shenanigans going on, and when the referee doesn't see. But you'd always sit in the clubhouse afterwards with the other team, and you'd
Right.
sit and have a beer, and the guy you might be sitting next to is the one that give you the black eye.
Right.
But
Yeah.
and you'd connect in that way. It's fascinating. But there's a couple of other things I wanted to ask you. I lost my train of thought here. What was it?
We got onto rugby and we
Got completely sideswiped as well. But
right.
but pulling it back around then with that's what I want. That was coming in about identity. That's right. So when you're going through that process, I so often see the stories becoming the identity of the person, and then we kind of end up in that, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
What did you do to navigate through all of that to come out and be able to be at peace with everything? Because it doesn't have to be a grief. It could be an illness, couldn't it? It could be so many things.
Right. Right. It could be so many things. And I may still have an ego, but what I realize now is I see the difference. I've even used that term in our conversation. I'll say, well, but the stories I'm telling myself, because we tell ourselves stories, but releasing all the ideas, and that happened for me quite quickly and drastically, because I prided myself on being athletic. I prided myself on my ability to provide. I prided myself on, the material things. Well, I've got a good house and I've got a good car, and I prided myself on the relationships, and I've got this lovely wife who adores me, and I've got these children who respect me. And suddenly that was all gone. I mean, I was in a wheelchair and I eventually got back to work, but everything was shattered that I thought was me. And by letting that go and actually feeling as if it was taken away, and that's where I was a victim, while I was taken away. I got to let it go, and I had to come to that where I could release that and let it be. But I've done beautiful processes, and there's groups here, and there's a new group that I'm working with, and it's referred to as the impact ripple. But where we can take all those things that we think are us, the clothes, the hair, the looks, whatever, and put them to the side and realize that I'm not those things. I am the one that's looking at those things, really going deeper into consciousness and almost embracing it as that innocent child when none of that mattered, and people could call it inner child work or shadow work, or, but releasing those things that I thought were me, but realizing none of them was me. I wasn't the athlete. I wasn't the house or the car or the relationship or my spouse or the marriage, or I saw those things transition away, and it provided an opportunity for me to take a really hard look at who am I? What is my inner strength, not my outer strength? What is my inner wealth, not my possessions? What is my connection to source, not my relationship? And I learned a lot in that. It's something everyone could do. Let's put all that stuff that we think is us in a bag over here and really get into the essence of who I am. And I use those words so consciously. I mean, I am. Those are such great and powerful words. And as I've leaned into that, I've realized I am love. And I am wisdom. And I am power when I stand in my power, when I get in that spirit place. And therefore none of the external stuff really matters. It's necessary. We all got to pay the bills. I mean, that's the challenge of this life. We could go sit in the cave and pray all day, but as fathers and children and obligations, and I use that word consciously too. We want to take care of things, and yet it's not who you are. It's what you do. That's what you do, and yet who you are certainly guides that. We've chosen to make an honest living. We've chosen to at least pursue things that bring us joy. We've chosen to provide and be honest in what we do, and these are all choices in the mechanics of this life. And yet we are more than that. We are more than that. We are eternal beings having a human experience and learning at every turn, if we're open to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, that's something I'm always grappling with, because you're right. It's like I have to pay the bills. I have a family. We got young children, and my mind always goes to, well, how can I bring this kind of heart and soul aspects into the business I'm creating, into the infrastructure? How can I let it weave through and ripple through in different ways, as opposed to this fight and this force and the way we kind of condition? You must work harder, you must work longer hours, you must to do these things to provide, and but one of the challenging things I do find, or I witness a lot with people, not so much in my own life anymore, but is having space and time to actually just breathe and stop and slow down and be, because of, if we, it kind of comes back to where we started off at the beginning. If we dialed into, the 3D reality of the world can feel like a really scary place, and then I'm in fight or flight, and if I'm in fight or flight, I'm not even giving myself permission to just start to actually feel it myself.
I love that, and I hear that. There is a reality here. We can talk, and many would say woo-woo concepts. There is a reality to it. This is one thing I've done, Guy, and I've found it effective, and I give myself 10 minutes a day. 10 minutes. It may not seem like much, and sometimes I can take 20 or 30 minutes. But if I can just take 10 minutes to be by myself, quiet, and listen, and that's often when I will ask that powerful question, what can I do for someone else today? And boy, the ideas just flow in, and it can be as simple as call your mother. You haven't talked to your mom in 5 days, but do that, act upon those impressions. Take 10 minutes, act upon the impressions you get. And I've just found the universe is kind. It whispers truth to my soul. It whispers truth into my heart. And I do get answers, especially when I ask, what can I do for someone else? And it brings me joy. It brings me joy. Now, with young children and families, what can I do for someone else? It might be, I just might pick my wife up some flowers on my way home, or I just might spend that extra time with my child and really be present, get down on the floor and play with them. Though, if there's one thing I've learned, and you lived this, and the little things are the big things. My boys are all grown and they're all taller and bigger than I am, and I look up to them. And the one thing I will always cherish, and the one thing I would encourage anyone with children, get down on the floor and play with them. I mean, play with them. It's good for my soul. And now that I've got this little grandchild, oh my goodness, if I can just get down on the floor, and he's he's very enthused about trains, and we played Thomas the Tank Engine the other day for nearly 40 minutes, but what a joy. And, when masters like Jesus said, become as a little child, that's not to be childish, it's to be childlike, but there's nothing that brings me closer to heaven than when I can get down on the floor with a child and play trains or tell stories or imagine. And our whole pastime might be a stick or an ant on the ground, but that's the awe and wonder of life, when all the stressful things, they can go away for a minute, and we can just be present with our children and let them know they're loved. Let them know they are loved. That's what matters. That's what matters.
Yeah, I love it. Amen to that. We're actually going through a phase where we do hide and seek every night after dinner.
Oh, I love it.
It is so mumuch fun. We'll just do 30 minutes and we'll play, and we're coming up with different creative ways. And I'm carrying my son and trying to hide it with him in the closet, and he absolutely loves it. No, it's beautiful. It's magic. Yeah. I would never have seen it in front of me before being a dad. It's like it's something that's extremely special. Just to wrap.
You'll always cherish that. You'll always cherish that, guy. You will always cherish that. You'll be my age and you'll be saying, remember when?
I know. Just as we wrap up the podcast, Jeffrey, what would your message be to anyone listening to this? Because there'll be a lot of listeners listening to this, and they're probably in a space where they're curious, inquiring about life. They might be in some struggles, they might be in pain, they might be grieving. I'm not sure, but what would kind of the wrap up be for anyone listening to this today?
Yeah. Well, that it's a choice. Choose joy. Do things that bring you joy, and realize that we have a choice in life. And I may have already said it. Wow, play with your children, play with your grandchildren. I mean, if we can teach and show and model to the next generation that they are loved and that they matter and that they are love, literally, that they are love, I think that's where it shifts. That's where the world begins to shift, and we have happy, healthy young people that are coming up as happy, healthy adults that know their worth, they know their value, they know their love. And that's what will bring us all together as one.
Beautiful. The moment you stopped, it rolled over the 1 hour. It's been an hour. It's like time has truly stood still for me in this podcast over the last hour, Jeffrey. I just thank you. Thank you for, making yourself available and helping bring these messages out there for all of us. Again, beautiful. Thank you so much.
It's an honor. It's an honor, Guy. It truly is. And I love the work you do, and anything I can do to support you, you just holler. Okay?
Thank you, Jeffrey. Thank you so much.